Hello everybody! In this slide, we observe the histology slide of female reproductive system. Objectives: identify the light microscopic structures of female reproductive system, including primordial follicle, primary follicle, secondary follicle, mature follicle, carpus luteum, atritic follicle, interstitial gland, and uterus. The first slide. Primordial follicle obtained from the section of ovary H. staining. The specimen is an ovoid structure. The surface of the ovary is covered by simple squamous or simple cuboidal epithelium, called journal epithelium, and the journal epithelium is a thin layer of dense connective tissue, called the tunica albuginea. The periphery part of the ovary stained purple red is the cortex, which contains ovules of the various size that are follicles. The central part stained red is the medulla. The cortex constitutes most part of the ovary, and it contains a large number of follicles, atritic follicles, carpus luteum, and numerous fusiform cells of connective tissue. The medulla is composed of loose connective tissue, which contains boundary blood vessels and nerves. The follicles in the cortex are at the different stages of development. They include primordial follicles, primary follicles, secondary follicles, and mature follicles. In addition, there are atritic follicles in the cortex. Primordial follicles, which are small in size and large in number, and located in peripheral zone of the cortex. Each is composed of one large round primary oocyte surrounded by a single layer of flattened follicular cells. The oocyte has a large nucleus with a prominent nucleolus and skeleton chromatin. Follicular cells are usually flat or cuboidal in shape with round nuclei, and the cell boundaries are unclear. The second slide, primary follicle. Obtained from the section of ovary H. staining, growing follicles, primary and secondary, vary greatly, both in morphology and in size. They are located in deep cortex. The oocyte in the follicle becomes larger. A bright red, homogeneous mammary called zona pellucida has appeared around the oocyte. Follicular cells are simple cuboid into several or many layers. The innermost layer of follicular cells become columnar cells, which arrange themselves randomly into regular layers around the zona pellucida, called corona radiata. In the secondary follicles, one or several small spaces appear among follicular cells and fuse to form a crescent-shaped cavity, the atrium, filled with follicular fluid. The follicular cavity increases in size. The oocyte is pressed to one side surrounded by a lot of follicular cells, forming the cumulus operans, which protrude into the atrium. The remaining follicular cells that surround the cavity are now referred to stratum granulosum. The connective tissue around the follicle form a sheath, the sacral follicular which include the theca. Internal and the theca external. The theca internal consists of many large ovoid cells and is rich in blood vessels. The theca external consists mainly of fusiform cells or connective tissue and is rich in fibers. The basal lamella is clearly seen between the follicular cells and the connective tissue. The fourth slide, mature follicle. Mature follicle is the largest follicle and contains more follicular fluid. It often protrudes into the surface of the ovary. The mature follicle is scarcely found on the section. The fifth slide, corpus luteum. One side of the specimen is red color blood clot, besides which is purple color structure that also project into the blood clot. There are numerous large cells with lightly red-stained cytoplasm around the blood clot. The nuclei are large and stained faintly. These cells are granulus lutein cells. At the periphery, there are clotted small cells with little red-stained cytoplasm. Nuclei are small too. These cells are theca lutein cells, which mean exist between the granular lutein cells. The granular and theca lutein cells constitute the corpus luteum. The sixth slide, achedic follicle and interstitial gland. Achedic follicle can also be seen in the cortex, and it may happen at different development stages of follicles. In an achedic follicle, the oocyte with strong eosinophilic cytoplasm degenerated and sinks. The zona pellucida becomes weary and faulted as a result of collapse of the follicle. Sometimes the cells of the theca internal enlarge and form many cores of the large epithelial cell. These cells are lightly stained and polygonal in shape and located in connective tissue called interstitial gland. In the cortex, some clamp-like structures stained light pink can be found. Its corpus albicans, which consists of fibers and a small number of fusiform cells. The seventh slide, uterus, obtained from the section of uterus HE staining. The focal point for the observation should be put on the endometrium. The endometrium is lined by simple columnar epithelium, which consists of the secretory cells and a small number of ciliated cells. The lamina propria is quite thick. The epithelia invaginate into it to form tubular uterine gland. The middle part of the gland is often somewhat dilated, and the basal part is somewhat tortuous. No secretory products are found in the gland lumen. Between the uterine glands is connective tissue with many compactly large cells and small blood vessels. The lumen propria can be divided into two distinct layers, functional layers and basal layers. The functional layer is thicker and near the luminal surface. It contains large amount of connective tissue and a relatively small number of longitudinal section uterine glands. The basal layer is thinner and connected with the muscle layer. It contains the tortuous uterine glands, which appear at cross and oblique sections. The contact is relatively small in account. The muscle layer is very thick and consists of numerous bundles of smooth muscle arranged in various directions. Observe the section of human uterus in secret fields. According to the thickness of endometrium, the number, morphology, and structure of the glands, the quantity of secretory product in the glands, the change of the connective tissue, and the blood vessel. Compare the difference between this section and the above-mentioned section of uterus in proliferate phase. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for your listening.